Өөрчлөгдөн хөвсөж буй өсөлтөөний нэрэн үед Монгол улсын хөгжлийн шийдэл юу вэ? Хэрвээ та энэ асуултанд хариултыг авах хүсвэл Отгонбаттай хамт англиар ярилцъя нэвтрүүлэгтэй хамт байна. This is English show together with Otgonbattai. Let's talk in English. We have a special guest today in our studio, Mr. Peter Wickenden, who is the Deputy Head of Mission at the British Embassy in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. And he's a very interesting man, as he worked in many different countries in foreign services. And he has a degree from Leeds University in geography, and spent 3 years in the country of Taiwan. And he speaks, of course, his native language, English, as well as some Chinese. So hopefully we can also test his Chinese a little bit later on. And Pete, thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
And we'll be very interested to talk to you. Let's welcome our guest. Today we have in our studio our students from New Century High School, which is a senior high school attached next to the Global Leadership University.
Right.
And our students will be listening to you, and they'll be asking you questions at the end of the show.
Fine.
So Peter, I understand you just got here, and you're fairly new to this country. What's your feeling? How do you feel?
Well, I've been here 2 weeks yesterday, so I am very new to this country. My first impression is that, well, the job at the embassy has been absolutely action-packed. It's been never a dull moment. I think I've been out almost every night so far. But my first impressions of your great country are really positive. I've actually enjoyed every minute of it. Had the pleasure to visit Terelj National Park last weekend, which was absolutely beautiful. It was nice to see the fantastic scenery which I'd heard so much about. It was even more beautiful than I had expected. So yes, I'm loving it so far.
So is the temperature, climate, is it cold for you?
It is pretty cold, isn't it? Yes, but yeah, I think you can get used to the cold pretty quickly.
So where did you grow up in the UK? The place where you grew up, is compared to temperature-wise, climate-wise, is it hard for you to adjust in the Mongolian rough and tough weather here?
Well, I was born right in the centre of London, quite close to Oxford Street, which is one of the most famous streets in London. And I grew up in various parts of London, north, east, and the south. Later on, when I was a student, of course, as you know, I was at Leeds University in Yorkshire, in the north of England. And then almost as soon as I graduated, ever since then, I've been overseas, mostly in Asia, for almost all of my adult life.
Sure. So, Peter, just a little bit tell us a little bit about what you do primarily at the embassy and what you're trying to do. Of course, as we look into the new year 2015, what's the embassy's, what are your office trying to accomplish this year? I mean, I'm not really familiar with different programs under your office, but please inform us a little bit.
Well, what does an embassy do? An embassy is there to really conduct a whole range of relationships and exchanges between the United Kingdom and Mongolia. So it's very diverse. You know, it's educational exchanges. That's what I'm doing here today. It's business, trade, and investment. It's promoting Britain as a tourism destination. You're all warmly welcome to come and study or to tour or to do business in the UK. We issue visas. We have all sorts of links and collaboration and cooperation with the government of Mongolia to assist Mongolia with its development, anything that you may need. Of course, the UK is an industrialized democracy which has have hundreds and hundreds of years of experience of how to develop a democracy and an economy. And all of that we can offer to share with you. So what we do is very wide-ranging. So there's a big range. We also have some military links with Mongolia, which we're very keen to develop too.
Sure. Our school, our university has a mission, or the motto of our university is preparing global citizens. Okay, so in this talk show, we talk a lot about who's really a global citizen and why everybody, the students in the studio, all the Mongolian students, the youth, should they be a global citizen? The global citizenship, how do you understand it in the context of really British education? Of course, this show is about education and economic development. Obviously, a lot of our students are fascinated about the opportunity of studying in the UK. So, from your embassy side, what are the different programs? What are the different scholarship opportunities or exchange programs where our students can look into?
Yes. Well, the UK has, I think, well over 50 very long-established universities and dozens more colleges of higher education. And obviously the oldest and most famous ones are Oxford and Cambridge. Of course, you will all have heard of those. Oxford is, I think, more than 1,000 years old. Cambridge is slightly younger, only about 900 years old. But they all offer a huge range of courses. Naturally, I would say a British education is the best in the world. I guess the Americans will say the Americans are better, but certainly we have probably the oldest established universities in the world. And I think the unique thing about studying in the UK would be that it really could make you into a global citizen, because you will be studying together with people from all over the world. Most of the universities in the UK, they're really international in their nature. And so if you want to find out about cultures and languages and history from all over the world, then the UK is the best possible place to do it. It would widen your horizons and widen your outlook, and could really prepare you for a career of an international nature. Not just learning the English language, which of course is the most widely spoken language in the world, or perhaps apart from Chinese.
Proper English, right?
Yes, British English.
Өөрчлөгдөн хөвсөж буй өсөлтөөний нэрийн үед Монгол улсын хөгжлийн шийдэл юу вэ? Хэрвээ та энэ асуултанд хариултыг авах хүсвэл Отгонбаттай хамт, англиар ярилцъя, нэвтрүүлэгтэй хамт байна. Specifically about maybe Chevening program or some of the specific scholarship programs, you may have some agreements, maybe partial funding agreement with Mongolian government, or so. What are the opportunities there? I mean, Britain, education in Britain, man, it's expensive. I mean, British pound against Mongolian tughregs, it's huge. I mean, I don't know, is it 2,000 some tughregs against £1? I'm not sure. So how can you make British education, I mean, it's a world class, obviously. We know Oxford, Cambridge, but how can we make it affordable?
Well, the main scholarship scheme that we do have is called the Chevening Scholarship Scheme, which is run by the British government, by the Foreign Ministry. But that is really for postgraduate study, as far as I know. But in Mongolia, it is expanding. We've gone up, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years from only 2 or 3 students to more than 10. And this year, we hope we will have, with the support of the Mongolian Ministry of Education, we should be able to offer more than 10 scholarships. And so if you have already got a degree from Mongolian University, then it's open to you to apply to study at postgraduate level in the UK under that scheme. And yeah, it's not easy to get a scholarship. We have a huge number of applicants, but it's a very fair and open and transparent selection process, so everybody has an equal chance.
This morning I was looking at the ranking of all the world universities. I think it was the Times Magazine or one of those online ranking information. And obviously starts with Harvard, Yale, and Oxford and Cambridge, of course, in top 10. But 60% of those top 100 universities are from the United States.
Are they?
And would you say that British education, is it, I mean, of course, Britain is, you know, even the United States, Australia, New Zealand, everybody came from, they were the immigrants from the Britain. And you are the founding country, even higher education. 1,000 years ago, Oxford was probably the world's first university in the world. So in the 21st century, how is the British education doing? Is this ranking right? I mean, do you challenge this ranking?
Oh, well, there are many rankings. There are lots of organizations are doing rankings which come out with different results. I think one thing that you can generally say, comparing American universities to British ones, and this is, I'm not here to sort of criticize American education at all. Of course, they have some extremely good universities, as you say, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, they're up there with Oxford and Cambridge as the best in the world. But I think the key difference perhaps between American and British universities is that I think in America, apart from those very good top universities, you have hundreds of other universities with quite a range of standards. Some of them perhaps, you know, not so world leading. The big thing about the UK is that almost all universities, they are run by the government. They're public universities. We have very few private ones. And this means that all British universities, they're of a very similar standard. It's all very high. They're all very good. So Oxford and Cambridge, perhaps, you know, they're up there at the top. But all the rest of British universities are right behind it. And so it's much less variation in standards. So they're all very good in the UK. And perhaps I should answer more fully your previous question about, you know, is it very expensive to study in the UK compared to elsewhere, like Australia or the US? You might think it is, but again, the key difference is that most courses at university in the UK, they are much more intensive and they're shorter. So maybe the cost of living is higher than in America, but you will spend normally only 3 years doing a degree in the UK. So overall, the total money that you spend on your accommodation and everything else will be less. So in fact, you get a better education in the UK and it's cheaper.
Yeah, Peter, so I was reading your story, of course, a little bit of your CV information, and you lived in Asia quite a bit of time. In fact, you're married to a Taiwanese lady.
That's right, yeah.
The 3 kids, you know, this show, our school, this program is, this year's focus is studying in Taiwan, and our university has the Taiwan Education Center here, and we get also a lot of support from the Taiwanese government. And at the end of this program in August, actually 10 students, 10 lucky, talented, dedicated students will win full scholarships to study at 10 Taiwanese universities.
Oh, really? Lucky then.
So in fact, myself, I traveled to Taiwan like, I don't know, over 20 times, visited so many universities. And of course, we're talking about Britain, but what do you think about Asia in general? I mean, is Mongolia, compared to the other Asian countries you visited, how's the flavor?
Well, yes, you're right. I have spent most of my adult life in Asia, you know, and I lived in Taiwan more than 15 years. I initially went there as a young man many years ago when I had hair and things like that, just traveling around. I taught English. And I met my wife, and later I was there as a journalist, as you know, and then later on I was there again as a diplomat. So altogether I've spent many years there, and of course perhaps I'm a little bit biased. I love Taiwan. It's a great place to live.
Did you try the bubble milk tea?
Oh yes, yeah.
Pineapple cake?
Yeah, delicious. All sorts of wonderful food. I think the interesting thing about Taiwan is perhaps that in terms of its cuisine, it's a wonderful combination of Japanese and Chinese. So if you like eating, it's a great place to be.
What's your favorite Mongolian food?
Well, I've had lots of boars. Sorry, forgive me if my pronunciation is not right, but those are delicious. They're quite similar to a Chinese sort of dumpling. And last weekend in Terelj National Park, I also had, is it korshogi? Yeah, delicious. I really like that. Yeah.
So Tsaransa is coming. Do you have any plans to visit families and eat lots of boars?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really keen to get out in my 2 years, or could be 3 years, here in Mongolia, and travel right around the country to every corner and experience real life, and try to not just be a tourist with a superficial view of it, but to really get below the surface and understand your history and your culture and meet real people.
Өөрчлөгдөн хувьсаж буй өсөлтөөний нэрийн үед Монгол улсын хөгжлийн шийдлийг өгнө. Хэрвээ та энэ асуултанд хариултыг авах хүсвэл
Отгонбаттай хамт, англиар ярилцъя, нэвтрүүлэгтэй хамт байна. You said you worked for one of the major Shell, which is one of the major corporations mining. It's a petroleum company, obviously. How's the British, UK, and Mongolia bilateral trade partnership? What are the main activities, and what do you think where we're going?
Yes, I think there is a small but growing volume of trade and investment between the UK and Mongolia. That means it's got a huge amount of potential to grow. I think the key British companies which are doing business here at the moment are, of course, Rio Tinto, which is heavily involved with Oyu Tolgoi. And that, as we all know, is a massive project. It's already producing huge amounts of copper and gold, and bringing in vital revenue for Mongolia. And as we all know, the company is very keen to expand it further. And we hope very much that the way will be open and unblocked for phase 2 of Oyu Tolgoi to go ahead. We're hearing very positive noises from the government about that.
Obviously, you know that our economy is so much tied to the US dollars, and everybody, the politicians, everybody is talking about the recession that we are facing. And so, based on your experience as a diplomat, where is Mongolia headed? What do you think we should do better to really integrate ourselves with the world economy, with Britain, with Europe? Obviously, Britain is Europe's one of the strongest economies, and how can we really benefit from this global economy? What should we do better?
I would like to answer that question based more on my experience as a businessman, as you say, with Shell, which is one of the world's biggest oil and gas companies. It's Britain's biggest company. In fact, it's Europe's biggest company. And from a business person's point of view, the one thing which they really want to see in any country where they're going to invest or do business is stability and openness, transparency and predictability. So all the laws and the regulations, they like to see stability and predictability if they're going to make a big investment. It's not so beneficial to see regulations being suddenly changed or laws being changed or enforced in an inconsistent sort of way. And then again, so I think if I was asked to make recommendations for how Mongolia should proceed, it would be try to be as predictable, as open and transparent as possible. And that way you will surely increase the confidence of big foreign companies to come here, to invest here, and to help to develop the economy and provide job opportunities and prosperity to your country. Only yesterday I had lunch with Mayor Batul, the mayor of Ulaanbaatar, and I could not do better than to quote him. He said that he said something very perceptive actually. He said that he knows that every economy in the world which has really prospered and done well has done so by welcoming foreign investment. So he knows that, and I fully agree with him.
Obviously, I understand that the reason that British economy is always so strong is that you have a lot of gold. You know, the Queen of England, hundreds of years you collected so much gold. And a lot of our politicians, the people talk about, you know, mining, and because of the price of coal went down, and our economy is struggling, you know. But what's Mongolia, I mean, when you look at Mongolia based on your experience, as a businessman, as a diplomat, what are the opportunities? Is this really our future? Is this really mining, or is this something else?
Well, I think it doesn't do any economy too much good to be too heavily reliant on one particular commodity or one particular kind of industry. And so, yes, of course, Mongolia has enormous amounts of coal. But let's face it, in these days when we are all needing to work towards reducing CO2 emissions and squarely face the problem of climate change and global warming, coal is perhaps not the best source of energy if we're really going to do that. So it is fortunate for Mongolia that you also have vast resources of other commodities which are in strong demand, like copper, gold and silver, and indeed oil and possibly gas. So I think it'll be a question of not relying solely on coal, and developing other resources, and developing your own industry as well.
Can we be like Taiwan? I mean, when I look at Taiwan, the country of Taiwan, they have developed the SME, small and medium-sized enterprises, and technology. Can we use our brain to create wealth? And do we have a chance, being close to China, free trade, open import policy here with China and Russia? What should we do really to create, like you say, the country that creates something, create some value, you know, so that we, you know, make money? I mean, not just mining, you know.
Well, I think Taiwan is one of those countries which has almost no natural resources. And you are blessed with a huge wealth of natural resources. Taiwan has nothing. It's a small island, but with a very large population, 22 million people, something like that. So what they do have is a very well-educated and skilled workforce, and they have a pretty wise, I think, industrial policy drawn up by the government over many years. They place great importance on education and producing a workforce from the education system that is what industry needs. And so I think one of the great things about Taiwan is that they have a very strong vocational education system. So you don't necessarily go to university, you actually study a craft or a business like engineering or something at a vocational school. That's an area where even the UK has been closely studying Taiwan's education system. So yeah, as you say, it's about the knowledge economy. You don't necessarily need natural resources, you need brains and
Өөрчлөгдөн хувьсаж буй өсөлтөөний нэрмэд Монгол улсын хөгжлийн шийдлийг Хэрвээ та энэ асуултанд хариултыг авах хүсвэл Отгонбаттай хамт англиар ярилцъя нэвтрүүлэгтэй хамт байна.
What makes England a great country to live and, you know, in a few words?
Well, of course, England was where the Industrial Revolution was born, perhaps. We have, because we're an island, we have always had no choice but to be open and international in order to survive. So we've always been a great trading nation, not just trying to export things, but importing as well. They're one of the world's biggest exporters and importers. So I think it's openness has been the key. You know, welcoming foreign investment, foreign students, tourists, business people from all over the world. Always have, and we always will. If we stop doing that and try to sort of close our doors, short, the UK economy would start to decline. So openness is the key. But again, I think also a stable and predictable political environment, a democracy, a very strong legal system where if you're doing business, maybe you have some business dispute, it can be fairly and quickly resolved in a court where the judgment can be trusted by both sides and it can be implemented. So all those things underpin a very strong open economy.
How do I begin wanna study in UK?
Right. Well, I think the first thing to do is decide what you want to study. Once you've made that decision, then it's a question of finding an appropriate course which contains the things that you want to study, and making an application to that university. Of course, there is the question of the funding. As you say, it's not cheap, and if you can't get a scholarship of some sort, then you will have to find those funds in your own way. But I think the first step is make that decision. What do you want to study? And you will find that there's some university in the UK which will surely cater to your needs.
You have talked about scholarship or ministry for a person who has got bachelor degree, and I have some question about that. And what field of professional can I study in UK by scholarship? And of course you can't talk about all information about that, and how can I get more information about scholarship? I mean, from where, or which website or something like that?
Under the Chevening Scholarship Programme, which is funded by the British government, in principle you can make an application to study anything, but under an agreement between the British government and the Mongolian government, we have identified a number of particular fields of study or subjects of study which we would prefer. And those I think are likely to be things like business, finance, maybe law, other things like that. But you can get plenty of information about the Chevening Scholarship Programme on its website.
So I think the key thing for you guys is to look into the world top 100 universities. So obviously Oxford and Cambridge is there. I don't know what are the other universities, but a lot of it's, like I said, it's in the US, but there are, I think, a dozen UK universities in the top 100. So basically, if you have met the requirements of those British universities within the top 100 universities, our president has a special program to cover your tuition. So basically that covers your tuition. You just have to afford your room and board. So you have to prepare for the IELTS test. You have to have a very high score on the IELTS test, and academically very good performance. And you have to have a very concrete plan. What you want to study, why you want to study in the UK. So that's the preparation part I think you should do. So Britain is a great place. I mean, if I didn't study in the US, I would have gone to UK. Maybe Oxford or Cambridge. Pete, thanks for coming.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
It was really interesting to talk to you, and please, all the best in your work, and best of luck, and enjoy Mongolia. I think
I'm sure I will.
It's a great country to be, and I hope to see you next time on our show.
Thank you very much, and good luck to all of you as well.
Өөрчлөгдөн хувьсаж буй өсөлтөөний нэрийн үед Монгол улсын хөгжлийн шийдлийг өгнө. Өрөө таангүй асуултанд хариултыг авах хүсвэл Отгонбаттай хамт англиар ярилцъя нэвтрүүлэгтэй хамт байна.